Hey everyone, my name is Ocean, and today let's talk about a cheap warm-up loadout that will allow you to practice your aim, push to clues quickly and quietly, and aggressively dominate in mid to close range PvP engagements. I will be discussing the primary and secondary weapons, the ideal traits to pair with this loadout, the tools and consumables you should utilize, as well as the overall pros and cons to this particular loadout. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Anyways, let's jump into today's video. Starting off with the primary weapon of this build, there are two solid options to choose from, the Nagant Officer Carbine or the Vetterli. First, we have the Nagant Officer Carbine, or NOC for short. The NOC is a rapid-fire accurate beast of a weapon. Having the ability to shoot rapidly with minimal recoil definitely makes this a weapon of choice for your warm-up matches. Now with this weapon, the bullet speed isn't the greatest, so you will have to lead shots further at range. So generally, this weapon will cater to more aggressive playstyles, ideally suited for medium to short range gameplay. Now, in the case where you don't have the NOC unlocked yet, you could sub in for my second option, the Vetterli. The Vetterli has one of the fastest bolt times for the bolt action rifles, sitting at 42 rounds per minute, which is an important factor given that with the quick swapping changes coming in the next update, you will need to rely more on your primary as a means to win shootouts. The NOC and the Vetterli are some of the most consistent and accurate primary weapons in this price range. The Vetterli boasts a higher damage value while having a slightly faster bullet travel speed when compared to the Nagant Officer Carbine. The increased damage makes the Vetterli the better choice if you choose to play more at mid to long range, so it's ultimately up to you if you prefer the close quarters higher rate of fire Nagant Officer Carbine or the Vetterli with the higher damage value and range that caters to a more mid-long range playstyle. Overall, both are solid options for a cheap budget-friendly loadout. And as a side note to the Vetterli and Nagant Officer Carbine, they are both very accurate at hip firing in those close quarters situations, so keep that in mind. In short, both rifles can currently fire their second shot faster than a quick swap, are fairly accurate shots from hip fire, and have good handling. I anticipate them to be even more powerful picks after the quick swap changes brought by the 1.4.4 patch. Taking all of this into consideration, we won't have to rely on our secondary weapon for every PvP encounter, and will make sidearms more utility-based, which brings us to our secondary weapon of today's build. The Silenced Nagant seems to be slightly underrated, but having a silenced secondary will allow you to shoot anything the second you start the match, while not having to worry about alerting other players to your presence. The more zombies you can shoot at the start of your warm-up match, the more likely your aim will be spot on and you'll prevail in your first PvP encounter. When you think about it, if you hop into your first match of the day and just knife grunts until you have your first encounter, you aren't going to be warmed up until that first PvP engagement is over, because you most likely haven't actually aimed at anything until you engage with players. As just general hunt advice, you ideally don't want to try warming up with PvP. Many times you may not be so lucky to get the drop on the first team you fight. But not only will the Silenced Nagant let you practice your aim early on, it will also provide a valuable ammo supply to your Nagant Officer Carbine and vice versa. And it will let you move from compound to compound quickly and quietly. Being able to move to the compound before another team arrives can be a huge advantage. Assuming you've been listening and can predict where players are coming from, you can choose where the battle takes place, and inside compounds or close to medium range is where the NOC and Vetterli shine. Next, let's talk about traits. Really, this build is fine for a level 1 hunter as it's not trait reliant, and it allows for a faster, more aggressive, and riskier playstyle you might not want to use with a leveled hunter. With that being said, the Silenced Nagant can become viable and even scary for PvP with fanning. Grabbing stealth and mobility traits can transform you into an even speedier clue-grabbing ambushing machine. Beastface, Greyhound, and the new and improved Gator Legs would be my top choices. The whole idea behind this build is to warm up, and giving yourself the ability to sprint at full speed will give you the quickness you need to get ahead of the other teams. For combat effectiveness, Iron Sharpshooter increases your ADS fire rate even further if you chose the Vetterli. Overall though, you might just run this loadout on your level 1 hunters, and save the leveled hunters for an altogether different build. Some other traits to consider would be Doctor and Frontiersman, and I will explain exactly why with the next part of today's build. As far as tools and consumables, it is largely your preference. Throwing knives are redundant when bringing a silenced pistol, and since you will be getting to compounds ahead of other teams, traps could be more viable than usual. Fusees are consistently underrated, and especially on a night map, they can prevent the long distance shootouts you might be forced into as you attempt to extract. While fusees are also great for illuminating the inside of porous buildings, keep in mind the minimal ability to wallbang other hunters with your compact or medium ammo. With the recent buff, choke bombs are also a viable option to bring as a tool, to prevent your teammates from burning out or to block certain areas off from teams for a short period of time. As mentioned earlier, Frontiersman would be a great trait to bring if you decide to prioritize traps instead of fusees or choke bombs. Having access to more traps will give you more of a chance at dropping an enemy with a well-placed trap. Next, talking about the consumables, I prefer a ratio of 2 vitality shots to 2 explosives. However, more explosives might be preferable, especially if you add the Doctor trait to this build, which as mentioned before would also be a good trait to consider. The Doctor trait will allow you to bring more explosives and less vitality shots, instead relying more heavily on your medkit, which receives a health boost from Doctor. Because this build is more catered to aggressive play and is ideal in mid to close range distance, you should almost always be in range to throw explosives. With that in mind, explosives may be what you should prioritize bringing. See, if you get a hit on someone, it's likely they won't have the same amount of time to heal as they would in a long range battle, which gives you more of an opportunity to apply consistent pressure to a team. For explosives, it is tough to beat frag bombs. And here, they have the added bonus of being harder to hear when they're cooking, meaning that if you're lying in wait after you got to a compound before another team, it can be a viable way to engage the team, potentially without scaring them with a loud fuse burning. With all of those considerations taken, I would say without the Doctor trait, you should be bringing the following tools and consumables: a knife, a medkit, traps, a choke bomb or fusees, 2 vitality shots, and 2 frag bombs. Now, if you decide to bring the Doctor trait, I would bring only 1 vitality shot and 3 frag bombs, but it's entirely up to you. Now, let's look at some of the overall pros for this loadout build. Some pros would be that this loadout is highly disposable, cheap, and great as a warm-up. With it being disposable, I'm solely talking about that if you kill a team, you can switch to their weapons and trade up for better gear to use in your next round. Next, just having the option for stealth is always a pro in terms of traversing the map quickly and effectively. And as mentioned earlier, it gives you the opportunity to practice your aim before engaging with players. Being able to pair the Silence Nagant with fanning will give you versatility in close quarter scenarios, while also acting as a deterrent, maybe making players second guess themselves on whether or not they should push to you. With the new 1.4.4 patch coming out, this loadout will be way more effective than it currently is on pre-1.4.4 servers. Lastly, for the pros section of this loadout build, with this build there is a good balance between it being cheap and powerful. Speaking of cheap, you can often get dual-wielded Silent Nagants from free hunters, or it's just $53 to buy. That paired with the $80 Nagant Officer Carbine or $105 Vetterli, which is also often on free hunters, makes this a very affordable and budget-friendly loadout, while remaining powerful and effective at close to mid-range engagements. Altogether, and at $150 or less, your primary and secondary will cost less than the recommended consumables. Now, in terms of the cons for this particular loadout, one of the only downsides is that the Nagant Officer Carbine unlock comes pretty late. When you are finally able to unlock this rifle, you may be in the higher levels of your current prestige, which makes you wonder why you are bringing an $80 rifle if you have a lot of money. This loadout stands as a budget warm-up loadout, so I still think it's a solid choice at any level to get a good warm-up match in. The next cons for this build are that with the compact ammo, it reduces your ability to wallbang people, and of course the overall downsides to compact ammo in general. With compact ammo, it takes multiple hits to the chest to down anyone, but that seems to be balanced out with the high rate of fire of the NOC. The final con to this build is the capability at range with this loadout. You will have to lead shots way more at range, and in general you don't want to be engaging at range with this loadout. So overall, while this loadout works well for a warm-up match, it is limiting in the sense of how you choose to play with it. Generally, pros and cons aside, you'll want to be aggressive and quick when running this loadout, while keeping your engagement range to a minimum. Some other considerations for this loadout build is that it is great to bring in duos, as your entire team can benefit from the versatility your Silent Nagant will bring. This loadout will only be extremely effective if you discuss and plan ahead with your teammates regarding your playstyle and what weapons you will all bring to complement one another. Just to give you some ideas, this cheap build will pair well with a teammate running a trapper build. See, if you're pushing aggressively and quickly to the next compound being stealthy, you will likely be there first, which will give you the opportunity to trap up a compound. If you guys would like to see a trapper build in the future, let me know down in the comments.
They just open it?
Hi. Sorry.
That was so dumb. Good job.
There's still one. Hi.
How was that so easy?
I don't know. So today I went over the best warm-up budget-friendly loadout, as well as gave you some insight on how to effectively put it to proper use. I hope this video gave you some ideas on what you should bring on your next trip to the bayou. And hopefully this loadout will be of use to you and will get you all warmed up for a night of hunting. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, as well as drop a comment if you have any other suggestions for a warm-up build or any questions. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one.